Seriously? Is that it?
Well, that's all I can afford this time, all right? We'll keep this and we'll split all this up and sell it. All right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way it's gonna
That's
work.
what we're gonna have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Can you give me some of that?
Sheriff's Department! Sheriff's Office! Get down! Get down now! Get down! On the floor.
What's happening?
Hands behind your back!
Hey, man, can't you just leave her alone? Leave her out of this?
On your side. Put your feet out in front of you. Count 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, kids. What about my kids?
You want to get your unit on? 10 more. You alright, buddy? You'll be alright. The lady from C.A.S.A that's coming in to talk to you guys, right? You'll be alright. Don't worry. Buddy?
I need each of you to take one of these, go and put everything in it you need to take with you, because you're gonna have to leave with me right now. Now, I'm sorry, honey, there's no pets in foster care. Come here. Now, be sure you get absolutely everything you need. We won't be coming back here for anything. Come on, let's go.
What is CASA, and how did it start?
Hi, I'm Barbara, and I'm a CASA volunteer, and CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate, and we're the voice for children who have been removed from their homes due to abuse and neglect. And we're also the eyes and the ears of the court, of the judge, and in fact the program was started by a judge who felt like he was making major decisions for these children without enough information. He looked around the courtroom and he realized that there was not one person in the courtroom who was advocating only for the child. And so he went out in his community and asked for volunteers, and I think his first meeting, they had 50 people there, and they all volunteered to follow the cases, get to know the children personally, and make recommendations to the court, and that's how CASA got started.
Barb, how did you decide to become a CASA volunteer?
I was approached by a board member to make a donation. Part of CASA is running off of donations. And so I didn't have any idea what CASA was. In New Mexico, that means house. And so they kind of explained the program to me, and I got on the internet and did a little bit more research, and I was really impressed. Made the donation, and it kind of stuck with me. And not too long after that, I got back on the internet, looked at it a little bit further, found out how to contact the local group, CASA, and contacted Tammy and said, how difficult is this? How hard would it be to get involved? What kind of training do I need? And so I went through the training process, which was not that horrendous, and very supportive, and got started as a CASA volunteer.
Tammy, how did you get involved with CASA?
Well, I come at CASA from a little different perspective. I'm the executive director of this CASA program. I mainly was interested in child abuse because I have 2 adopted children that came through the foster care system. They were in foster care in Texas, and frankly, I think they had as much abuse when they were in foster care as they did from their birth home. So that got me interested. My graduate studies all were centered around child abuse, trauma, things like that. So it was just kind of a natural progression to come into this position.
What can cause a child to be removed from their parents and put into CYFD custody?
Well, there's a myriad of reasons why children are removed from their homes, mainly because it's not safe for them at that time. That could be due to being physically abused, sexually abused, Or it could be just neglect because the parents are doing drugs or they're just not capable of parenting the way that they should.
It's never anything that the child has done. It's always the circumstances that the child's in. And so basically they're removed from the home because it's not safe.
Mhm.
And they're put into protective custodies so that some decision can be made about where they can go that is safe.
Mhm. Or if the parents are capable of, learning what it takes to make their children safe and how to be a better parent. A lot of what CYFD, Children, Youth, and Families Department, who is the entity that actually takes children into custody, a lot of what they do is teaching parents how to parent, because we don't get that in school, and you don't just know it by osmosis. So they work really hard with the parents.
Yeah, and that is actually the number one treatment, or the number one plan is always reunification. So they put together something where the parents know exactly what they need to accomplish to create a safe environment and have the kids return to them. So that, along with a parallel track of, okay, if they're not going to be able to or are unwilling to make these changes, then what other options does the child have?
What happens to the kids after the trauma of being taken from their home?
After they've been taken from their homes, they have a treatment plan that involves, health care and seeing a psychologist and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of changes that happen in their life. Unfortunately, even though they've been removed from their home for their own protection, not all of it is positive, because oftentimes they're removed from the school they've been attending, they've been removed from their family, they don't get to bring their pets. There's a lot of additional trauma that's involved. But hopefully, in the long run, the positives outweigh that. So they're learning a whole different way of living, sometimes with regular meals, doing homework, regular hygiene. A lot of positive changes, hopefully, are occurring in their life.
Please describe the first CASA meeting with the child. Are the parents there?
We usually try to have the first interaction with the children be in the foster home, and that's because they're already there, they feel comfortable there, and it's not like a really forced interaction. Sometimes our first interaction with the children is during a family-centered meeting where everyone involved, the social workers, the attorneys, people like that are there, and their parents are there. And so it's usually difficult when we interact with the children and the parents, just because the parents a lot of times resent everyone in the procedure, and I don't know, it's just more difficult, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Although every situation is different. So some of the parents are more receptive
Right.
to this than others. And we also, towards the end of the case, you're going to have a trial home visits where the kids are back with the parents, hopefully. And in that case, you are visiting with the parents and the children at the same time.
What help or guidance is the child receiving while they're in state custody?
These children each have an individualized treatment plan, so it's very early on their needs are distinguished from, say, some other child or even their own sibling. So Children, Youth, and Families Department makes a really good effort into determining what each child needs and seeing that they get that. Many of these kids are delayed developmentally, so they may get extra help, physical therapy, occupational therapy. More often than not, there's psychological therapy involved. A lot of kids will get tutoring, anything that they need. CYFD is there and prepared to provide that. And should they miss something, that's where the CASA steps in, and we notice and we'll bring that to their attention and make sure that these kids get what they need.
What kind of changes will the child go through while in CYFD custody?
Is that me again?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez. Well, change is always varied by the individual. But you will see mostly positive changes with these children. And, you know, it's our hope that during that time they're positive changes. Kids who have been shy or withdrawn before hopefully will come out of their shells. Children with behavioral issues will hopefully get to the root of those issues through therapy or, you know, just having a stable environment and kind of blossom. You see a lot of kids who have been failure to thrive that are really, really small for their sizes. Once they get in a stable environment, they start to grow like crazy. You'll see some kids grow 3 or 4 inches in a year, which is amazing. So we hope that they have mostly positive changes and positive interactions.
A lot of the kids, you see them becoming really children for the first time because they have been taking care of themselves and taking care of the siblings. And so at first, it's like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And the more things remain stable, the more they change. And so when you first see them, you know, they never smile and they're afraid to answer questions. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're very verbal and you come to the house and they're out playing basketball and skateboarding and things that they would not have done before. So for the most part, it's a very positive change. And the report cards reflect that as well.
Right, and with the younger children, a lot of times you'll find children coming into care that are really, really behind developmentally. Most of the kids will be 6 months to a year behind. And, you know, in the younger kids, that may present as not being able to walk at a year old or 2 years old. And so they really, really catch up developmentally and meet their milestones and things for the first time.
Yep.
What happens in cases where a CASA volunteer was not assigned?
Yeah, they actually have statistics that follow when CASA has been involved. The difference between that and when CASA has not been involved. So when CASA is involved, the cases are usually resolved more quickly. So a safe and permanent home for that child where they will be happy and thrive is found more quickly than if CASA was not involved. The chances of that child ending up back in protective custody, it happens less often if CASA has been involved. If CASA was involved, it's more likely the child will end up graduating from high school. It's less likely that the child will end up being homeless after they've aged out of the program. It's more likely that the child will become self-sufficient as an adult if CASA has been involved. So there's some pretty amazing statistics that show that CASA is truly effective long-term.
What is the CASA volunteer's role in working a case?
CASA is basically the voice of the child and the eyes and the ears of the court. So first we meet the child, we interact with the child, we get to know the child, but we're also reading through all of the reports, all of the evaluations. We meet and keep in contact with everybody else that's involved in the case. So that involves the attorneys, the social workers, the psychologists, the doctors, the teachers, everyone that's involved in the case we interact with. And that way we can present all of that with a recommendation to the judge.
Yeah, I would say also that a great deal of what we do is oversight. Pretty much everyone else involved in the system has multiple cases, like Barbara said before, and you know this is usually our only case. So, say the CYFD worker may be a little overwhelmed. They may have 30 cases or something, and they may miss something. But we're there to be the oversight, and we can pick up on that, and get the kids the things that they need.
Can you tell us what the goals of the CASA volunteer are?
The basic goal is to find a safe and permanent, loving home for this child. So that's the main goal. And how we do that encompasses all of these other things that we just spoke about. And we want to do that as quickly as possible so the child is not in limbo any longer than they have to be.
Exactly.
What does being a CASA volunteer mean to you?
It's very rewarding because you can see that you really have helped make a difference. So I've been involved in a lot of different volunteer programs, and I would say that working with kids gives you the greatest feeling of accomplishment, but this one particularly, because statistically having a CASA there is so important, and these kids really need someone to speak up for them, to be their advocate, and to make sure that good changes can happen for them.
And the results of a CASA's involvement are usually very tangible. You can see the child attached to an adult that maybe before they've been afraid of adults. You can see a child grow when they, had previously been stunted. So it's very rewarding when you can see your efforts actually materialize.
What difficulties might I see as a CASA volunteer?
Well, there's numerous difficulties, and it's on different levels. I think first you're dealing with bureaucracy and timelines and court system and all of those things. But also, it's not all paperwork, and it's not all dealing with adults. There's a lot of emotions involved in this, and it can be daunting wanting to always say and do the right thing and not being quite sure that you're doing that. So the continued training helps with that, and also the fact that probably after almost every meeting, the first year that I did this, and every interaction that I had, I called Tammy and said, okay, this is what happened, and this is what I felt should be done, and what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was very, very helpful to be able to rely on that. Having that support made a huge difference in my confidence as far as moving forward in each one of the situations, and also finding out what resources are available to us. What can we do when these situations come up? Where do we go? What can we provide for the child? And so Tammy's always been a great support and a great resource, not only because she's been with the program, she's worked with all the people, and she also has a doctorate in psychology. So I've never felt like I was out there on my own. I'm supposed to be there for the child, but sometimes I wasn't quite sure what I should be doing for that child. So it's been helpful to have Tammy in my corner.
Well, and I think it's really important to me personally that no damage is done to my CASA volunteers. It's been proven time and time again that when you deal with trauma, it's just as bad for you as experiencing that trauma firsthand. It's called secondary trauma or vicarious trauma. And I certainly make it a point to tell everybody when they first come in that you will be affected by what you do. But my job is to make sure that it doesn't harm you. And so we work really, really hard, both individually and as a group, I think, to make sure that everybody's okay. When we get together, everybody checks in and makes sure, well, how's your case going? Are you doing well? How do you feel? So it's a very supportive environment,
It is.
I hope.
Yeah,
That's
it
my
is, definitely.
hope.
Yeah.
We know helping the defenseless can be rewarding. Can you tell us some of the rewards you experienced being a CASA?
So far, I think the greatest reward is I've been happy and with the decision of the judge in the end. I felt like the final decision was in the best interest of the child. So that makes you feel good, and it makes all those little battles that you went through during the process well worth it. So I would say that would be the greatest reward, is knowing that these kids are in a much better place now than when they were taken out of their homes originally. Even if they're back in the same home, it isn't the same home. Changes have taken place.
Right.
So,
Positive changes.
positive
Yeah.
changes.
What are the requirements to qualify as a CASA volunteer?
Well, the initial qualifications are really quite easy. You have to be over 21 years old, no criminal history. You have to really care about children. You don't necessarily have to have had any experience with children previously, but the main thing is that you're committed to wanting to make a difference in someone's life. We ask that each new CASA volunteer agree to stay at least a year, because all of these cases last at least a year, unfortunately. What was the rest of the question?
Well, I think the basic requirements, we had to have a 30, so we had 30 hours of training.
Mhm.
And then once you've gone through your training and you've actually been sworn in by the judge, you have to have continued training each
Mhm.
year. So we have an additional 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they have each year that I've been very impressed with is they have a law conference, children law conference in January. And we're actually there with the
Mhm.
attorneys and the social workers and the judges, and we're all getting the same training, and we're all listening to the same stuff. And so,
And it's usually cutting edge training. They bring in people from across the world, not just the nation, on things like attachment and resiliency and other things like that. So it's a really good training.
and some cutting edge stuff as far as what's new in our area. This last time, one of the big topics was some of the changes in drugs
Mhm.
that are on the market and how that's affecting families. A lot of the kids that come into protective custody is because their parents have been arrested, and it's law enforcement, like in the dramatization that we saw, who call and say, okay, we're arresting these
Mhm.
people and they have 3 or 4 kids and we need someone to come and pick them up. So all of that stuff is information that we can use,
Mhm.
very valuable.
Hmm. Yeah, the face of addiction is changing all the time, and we really try to keep up with what the latest
Right.
drugs are. And
Right.
yeah, unfortunately, what our families are facing. We just recently had a case come in where the police pulled over a car, and in it were the parents and 3 children, and over 100 used syringes were just laying around the car open. The kids could have stuck themselves really easily. So things like that, it's kind of disturbing.
Mhm.
What can our viewers do to help or to get involved?
Well, if they'd like to become a CASA volunteer, all you have to do is call me, Tammy Hanks, at 505-720-7030, or go online to our website, casasandoval.org. You can also come visit us here at the office, 4011 Barber Loop, Southeast in Rio Rancho. We'd love to have you volunteer. You can also, if you don't feel like you have the time or not particularly leaning that way towards being a volunteer, you can certainly send money.
Money's always good. We can use money.
Always good.
Everything that we do, the volunteers, the money, it goes directly to support the kids, to be the voice for the kids. So it's all about the children.
Right. We are a nonprofit organization, so, we're not in this to make money. We're in this to help the children.
Thank you for watching.
The kids need you.
Please volunteer and be a CASA.
You can make a difference.
Be a CASA.